Good to see you. Today we are going to be looking at an explanation of Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. I kind of read the story in the last video I posted. Didn't provide much explanation, didn't go much deeper into the story than just telling you what happened. My plan for today is to give you a quick refresher on the story, and then after we do that, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the symbolism, some of the hidden elements of Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been. So just a quick recap. In Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been, you have the main character. I suppose you could argue if she's the main character or if Arnold Friend is, but you have Connie, teenage girl, 15 years old, in America in the 1960s, sort of this time of change. You have the civil rights movement going on, but at the same time, you've also got kind of this hippie, free love movement going on as well. Women are also being empowered at the time. So my point is that it's a big time of societal change in America. It's a very turbulent time, I guess you could say, not in that things are becoming difficult, but in the fact that there's a lot of change. And in the midst of this, Connie is a teenager. She is pretty. She knows she's pretty. And as she says in the story, that was everything. It's the most important thing in her life. She has kind of this double life from what she lives at home versus what she lives when she goes out with her friends. So she tells her parents she's going to the movies. Instead, she goes and hangs out with older kids, maybe finds herself in some positions that her parents would not be very happy for her to be in. And she lives that life, and she's happy. This is, like she said, it's being pretty is everything. Being able to live this life is everything. Her relationship with her mom, you could say it's not great, but I would probably argue that it's a typical teenager-parent relationship in a lot of ways, in which she feels like her parents don't understand her, and her parents probably understand her a little bit better than she realizes. In the midst of all this, she is at home alone one time because she doesn't want to go with the family and onto a barbecue on a Sunday. And we think a young man pulls up in a car and tells Connie that they're going to go for a ride. And at first, it's a flirtatious, fun kind of interaction, and then the tone gets darker as the story goes on. We realize that this man is not as young as we thought he was. We realize that he is got a little bit worse intentions than what we thought in the beginning. And in the end, after Connie sort of goes through this out-of-body experience, she's scared. Arnold Friend, which is the man's name, or what he says his name is, threatens Connie, threatens Connie's family, and says, if you don't come, then we're just going to sit out here and wait for your folks to get back, and then they're all going to get it. And Connie eventually, at the end of the story, makes the decision to go with Arnold Friend, and we get the sense, it's a sense of finality at the end of the story, that Connie's not coming back from this. This is not going to be a ride around the neighborhood for a date, and then we drop you off and it's over with. Connie is leaving, and Connie is not coming back. And on that note, continuing on, this story was influenced by two things. Joyce Carol Oates wrote this in 1966. She was influenced by two things. The first and the most prominent influence in this is the true story of Charles Schmid, Schmid, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty close. Which we'll look at that more carefully later. He was famously portrayed in a Life magazine article, which is now actually in the Library of Congress with a collection of true crime reporting. Charles Schmid killed 3 people in Tucson, Arizona. in the early 1960s. He was called the Pied Piper of Tucson. He was called that, and like I said, we're going to look more at him. I'll have some stuff up on Friday about this guy, the true story that inspired all of this. Charles Schmid was older. He portrayed himself as younger. Like you see with Arnold Friend in this story, Charles Schmid would wear makeup. Charles Schmid stuffed his boots to appear to be taller. And we'll come back to more on that later. Charles Schmid was a very fake young man. He put on a show, not too dissimilar from what Connie does in the story, but he was able to attract people to him. He was able to attract young girls in particular. Just like Arnold Friend in the story, he had sort of some sidekicks that went along with him, that followed along with whatever he said. And it was the inspiration for Arnold Friend. The other inspiration for this was a song by Bob Dylan. We talked about it at the start of the story. The dedication for this story was to Bob Dylan. She dedicated Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? To Bob Dylan. And the reason for that is, like I said, there were two inspirations for this. The first was the article on Charles Schmid, the fact that Charles Schmid, the true story of that. The second inspiration was a song called It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I'm going to link that YouTube video in the Google Classroom. That's a Bob Dylan song. Now, I want you to listen to it. More importantly, I want you to look at the words. Now, this is 2020, and there's a chance that some of you are not familiar with Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is a very famous artist, a very famous singer-songwriter, very famous songwriter-singer. This is where I'm going to get into some personal preferences. As a singer, I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan, and if you listen to the song, you'll kind of see why. He has a very unique voice that some people can kind of like versus not be as crazy about. As a songwriter, he is brilliant. And when I say brilliant, I mean a couple years ago, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature because his songwriting is not just songwriting, it's poetry. As a matter of fact, he's published some poetry as well. And the song It's All Over Now, Baby Blue inspired Joyce Carol Oates to write this story. Now, let's jump into the story now. Let's look at this a little bit more. Let's look at some of the symbolism because there's some really cool stuff that's hidden in this, and I want y'all to make sure y'all get it. The first thing is we want to talk about Connie, okay? We want to talk about Connie as vain, as condescending, and as stupid. And I don't say stupid as in she's not smart. I say stupid as in I've told you ever since we read Romeo and Juliet at the start of the year that teenagers are stupid, okay? Ignorant would be a better word. She does not have the life experiences yet to make the decisions, to see things for what they are, okay? But as I'm fond of reminding you, teenagers are stupid, and it's just a lot easier for me to say that. Her family is also kind of stereotypical. Her mother is kind of overwhelming presence. She's on top of Connie all the time. She's nagging. Father, on the other hand, he goes to work, and that's about it. Okay? He comes in, reads the newspaper, and goes to bed. He's not a big presence in Connie's life. So the first time we see Arnold Friend is when Connie is at the restaurant at the start of the story. She's walking to a car with another boy, and she's leaving, and she just happens to see Arnold Friend, who makes a sign, we'll come back to that in a second, and says, "Gonna get you, baby." Which, probably not the best statement to make if you're trying to attract a female. Probably don't need to go out and say that, guys, if you're trying to pick up anybody this weekend, especially when there's a pandemic going on, and it just seems like a bad idea. Don't try that. But Connie kind of thinks it's cute. She goes on with it. And that brings us to Arnold Friend in general. Arnold Friend is attractive, but in a fake way. Okay? Literally, he's wearing makeup. He goes out of his way to make himself more attractive to people, or what he perceives as attractive. He is enticing. Okay? He is he can entrap people. He has a magnetic personality. Some people have those type of personalities where others just seem to be drawn to them. Some people have those personalities and they're really good people. Some people have those personalities, they're really bad people. And then we can kind of decide what Arnold Friend is. And kind of this subtle undertone to the story, something that's not said explicitly but is kind of in the background the entire story, is that Arnold Friend is this otherworldly type character. I'm going to tell you that there's two ways, really, that you can read the character of Arnold Friend. The first is that he's just this creepy guy, and he's based on Charles Schmid, and he just has this effect on people, and that is a very okay way to take this story in. It's a very acceptable way of evaluating the character of Arnold Friend. But I think you do yourself a disservice if you don't consider the other possibility. And the other possibility is, as this story goes on, we realize that Arnold Friend is almost this demonic type character. Okay? And I'm not just making this up. I have a basis for it. Okay? The first thing that we see for this is that he knows everybody and everything. We see this when he starts naming all of the people that Connie knows. All right? But Connie doesn't know him. How does he know all of these people, the people that are known around town, the popular kids? How does he know all of them and Connie doesn't know this guy? Well, certainly it's possible that he could have scouted things out. Okay, I'll give you that. But he also sees across town. He looks and he sees that Connie's family is sitting at a picnic. He sees that they're sitting there. He says they're drinking, and that people are shucking corn, and that people are cooking corn. And he sees Connie's sister in the blue dress. And he sees all of these things, even though they're across town. And it even says in the story that he's kind of sitting there with a look on his face, like he's looking miles and miles away at something that's happening. All right? We talk about Arnold Friend's sign, okay, which is an X in the air. It mentions in the story that when he makes his sign, that it seems to linger in the air for just a second, almost like he's actually drawn something into nothing. All right? He associates with strange people. Ellie Oscar is in the car. He's listening to a radio up against his ear. It's like the air outside hurts his head the entire time. Ellie Oscar is this, Connie says it's like the face of a 30 or 40-year-old baby. Okay? He's just this hairless, weird-looking guy. He has control over Connie. Now, is that possible for just an average person to have over someone? Yeah, you could make that argument. But it's like Connie doesn't have another choice other than to listen to him. We mentioned this earlier with the boots. In the story of Charles Schmid, the real person that inspired this, Charles Schmid would stuff his boots with socks and tin cans and put his feet in the top of them to make himself appear taller. It's a strategy I've considered often. But just like Arnold Friend in the story, I can't walk like that. It mentions in the story that Arnold's boot kicks out at a weird angle, like his shoe's not in it all the way. The reason for that is because, like his foot's not in his boot all the way, because his foot is not in it all the way. He's walking funny. But there's also this depiction of the devil or these demon-like creatures. And when they exist, they always have goat legs. They don't have actual feet. Their back half, their bottom halves are like goat legs. Okay? And it's just the suggestion that might be what's going on with Arnold Friend. Again, we're not going to show like a traditional little devil with horns and things like that, because if you look biblically, that's not what the devil was. It's usually this attractive creature, this attractive offering that has another side. Okay, if you've read the Bible, and we're going to come to some more biblical stuff in the back, Satan was an angel, And angels are attractive. You don't see angels depicted anywhere, and they're just these horrible, hideous beasts. They are attractive in the beginning. That's part of their attraction. Just like Arnold Friend in the beginning, he's this somewhat attractive young man until Connie starts to see through him. But by the time she starts seeing through him, it's too late. So we have the boots that seem to be hiding like this demonic, maybe these goat feet or something. I don't have goat feet, actually. I want to be taller. That's why I want to stuff the... I'm not hiding goat feet. That would be... I would have mentioned that already. I feel like I really would have mentioned that already because... Yeah, I would have pulled those out on the first day. It'd been like, hey, I'm Coach Elliott. This is my such and such year teaching. Also, I'd like for you to see my feet. I have cloven hooves. And that's another thing about me that you should know. But I don't. I have actual human feet. I'm just short. Moving on with Arnold Friend, though. So we have the boots. We have maybe the weird feet, but maybe not weird feet. We also have the fact that he knows this old woman down the road, the one with the chickens. And Connie says she's dead. He says, well, so what? Do you not like her or something? Connie says, well, she's dead. And he goes, well, did she do something to you? What's the problem? Arnold doesn't care that she's dead. It doesn't make a difference that he's dead. And what you have with the reference with the lady with the chickens is maybe like this occult, this witch type stuff that maybe he knows her through that. Maybe because he's tied into all those dark things, and that's where he knows her from. And he doesn't even care that she's dead because since he is this otherworldly being, it doesn't make a difference to him. He still knows her. He still sees her in some sort of way, even though, as Connie says, she is dead. In the end of the story, Connie goes with Arnold Friend willingly. In the end of the story, Connie is lured in and she falls for him. Okay? We also have the fact that Arnold won't enter the house. I can't come in the house unless you touch the phone, then I don't have to keep my promise anymore. This actually goes back to an old, it's a reference to an old myth about vampires, which is that a vampire can't enter your home unless they are invited. Now, what does that have to do with, okay, he can once he touches the phone, blah, 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 blah? I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that. Maybe somebody smarter than me can come up with it. But that's what I feel like it's a reference to. That's what other people have felt like it's a reference to before. We also have the Arnold Friend. When you remove the R's from Arnold Friend, you come up with an old fiend. The car is colored gold, but it says it's a jalopy. It's this beat up car. It's colored gold, which is this color of beauty, this color of vanity almost, that people see this car and they think, wow, that's gold, that's nice. But it's nothing more than a paint job. It covers up. It doesn't make the car any nicer. The gold on the outside of the car does not do anything for the car itself. There is painted on the car a pumpkin with glasses. It's made to look like Arnold Friend. Connie feels like it looks like a jack-o'-lantern, which is another association with evil. Something else in the story before we get to really what is probably my favorite part. We're going to explain the numbers real quick, okay? But before we get to that, there is this idea. It was a motif in Renaissance art. It's called Death and the Maiden. It was this idea of these young, beautiful girls somehow in a situation where they are encountering death itself in some form. Okay? I didn't make this up. This was a constant theme in Renaissance art. If you Google Death and the Maiden artwork, you're going to come up with all these images. Here is one right here. Okay? You have a pretty young girl that is encountering death itself. I could show you several different versions of this, but the problem is that a lot of them have boobies in them, and I don't want to answer those emails. Okay, why are you showing lewd artwork to blah, 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 blah? I'm not going to dive into that. If you find it on your own, don't say that I told you to Google it. It's not on me. I'm innocent. It's Renaissance art. Get yourself some culture, folks. But we have this motif of death and the maiden, which is another example on Joyce Carol Oates, the author of Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? On her website, she has a section devoted. When you go look at Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? The photo is of death and the maiden. So she was 100% going for that connection there. Now, this next part is most people's favorite aspect of the story. On Arnold Friend's car, he has numbers painted. 33, 19, 17. And he tells Connie those are a secret code. And there's about 5 or 6 different things they can mean. Now, if you take your time and you add up 33, 19, and 17, it does come to a number that if I ever say it in class, everybody giggles. It is a number with lewd and inappropriate associations. I'm not going to speak it aloud. But that is the most obvious joke. That's the most obvious secret code that Arnold Friend could be coming up with. But it is far from the only take that you can have on that number. The next one that you can have, you have to go into numerology a little bit. Which all that, I don't believe in any of this. But for the sake of this story, it's interesting. What you do is you make a chart. You number 1 through 9. And after you do that, you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. When you reach 9, you start back again. J, K, L, M, and so on and so forth. And you're assigning a numerical value to each letter. And that kind of gives you a code. For example, if you were to take the numerical value of each of the letters in the words Connie loves God, it gives you 33, 19, and 17. If you were to take the word Genesis, as in the first book of the Bible, Genesis is its numerical value adds up to 33. So we go to Genesis 19 and 17. And this is the King James Version. It says, "And it came to pass, when they had brought them aboard, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape for the mountain, lest thee be consumed." What we have here is we have Genesis 19 in the Bible, which I believe, and I should have double-checked this moving on, yes, it deals with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It deals with Lot leaving Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot left Sodom and Gomorrah and was told not to look back. As a matter of fact, Lot's wife did. She was turned into a pillar of salt. So Genesis 19:17, the numbers that are on the car right when they pull up, it almost serves as a warning to Connie, telling her, "Look not behind thee, escape for thy life, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape for the mountain, lest thee be consumed. Leave, run away. Bad things are happening, Connie. This is dangerous." Again, she doesn't listen. Let's say I'm right in all this. Let's say that Arnold Friend really is this devil-type creature. Let's say that he is some otherworldly evil. Well, you couldn't really go to the 33rd book of the Bible, because he's the devil. He's not going to do things legit. He doesn't have respect for it. Instead, you would count backwards from the beginning of the New Testament. You would count backwards 33 books, which would lead you to the book of Judges. And once you get to Judges, you would go to Judges 19:17, which in the New International Version says, "When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, 'Where are you going? Where did you come from?'" So if you look at the numbers, if you go backwards to Judges, if you go to 19 and 17, what the man is asking is, where are you going, and where have you been? The title of the story. Now, the only other possible explanation for the numbers is a reference to the fact that Connie says Arnold Friend is older. That he's at least 30, maybe more. And that Charles Schmid, the Pied Piper of Tucson, the person who this true story was based on, was older. And he had a 19-year-old victim. He had a 17-year-old victim. And then finally, he had a victim who was a little bit younger. Maybe 15. So it's an indication of how old Arnold Friend is and how old his victims have been. All right? The point in all this is not for me to show you like something bad or something evil or something like that, but there is so much hidden in this story. It's why it's my favorite one to teach every year. And it's usually why students enjoy it as much, because there's so much material. I've probably missed some stuff in what I've gone over today, but I feel like I've made this last long enough. There's going to be some questions about this on Google Classroom. It's going to be related to everything we've broken down. I'm going to get your opinion on some of this stuff, and then later this week I'm going to have another video that talks about the article, the true story, the nonfiction truth behind the story of where are you going, where have you been. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've paid attention to it. As I've told you before, it's my favorite thing to do every year in terms of short stories is the breakdown of this for everyone. We are going to, I'm going to put some announcements up about it, but we are going to have some Google Meets on Thursday and Friday, just like last week, if you have anything you need to ask me about. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.